In our last video, we once again dealt with the improvements of life on Earth, which we owe to the space agency NASA. This video is now about curious stories that have happened in the last decades, some to smile at, others to frown at. Fake moon rocks. The Dutch National Museum in Amsterdam has some precious masterpieces, besides an impressive library. For example, Rembrandt's masterpiece, The Night Watch, or Johannes Vermeer's The Milkmaid. A supposedly extraterrestrial treasure has also been part of the collection, a small chunk of moon rock from the first moon landing, collected by Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin during mankind's greatest technical achievement in July 1969. Then, in 2010, geologists, led by Frank Bionk of the University of Amsterdam, examined the rock in more detail for the first time and came to a rather sobering conclusion. It was petrified wood that had naturally come from the Earth and was almost worthless. The supposed moon rock was a gift to the then Dutch Prime Minister when the astronauts of the first moon landing were on a grand tour. It was given to the US ambassador to the Netherlands, William Middendorf, who claims to have received the stone himself from the US State Department. How it could happen that petrified wood was given away as a moon rock, nobody can explain yet. Alan Bean and the cameras. Alan Bean was the pilot of the lunar module on Apollo 12, and his mistakes with cameras are legendary. First, he tried in vain to find the self-timer for his Hasselblad camera, as he wanted to appear with Pete Conrad in a picture near the Surveyor 3 probe. Then, on the lunar surface, he forgot to shield the camera's lens from the sun's rays, and so nothing came of the first color film shots of the moon. Furthermore, he forgot to secure his handheld camera during the landing, which flew into his face and briefly incapacitated him. Since Bean turned to painting after his career at NASA, he ended up painting a picture of himself and Conrad near the probe. This painting is titled, Our Little Secret. Why do space travelers constantly have a sniffly nose? On Earth, the fluid from the nasal mucous membranes usually flows unnoticed and automatically into the throat, not so in zero gravity. The water in the organs shifts and the nasal mucous membranes swell. It's not just the nose that's affected, the whole face becomes bloated. The legs, on the other hand, are thinner. But more seriously, the longer astronauts stay in space, the more bone mass they lose. And most tragically, even after a year on Earth, the astronauts would not have recovered from this. What was surprising, however, was the insight NASA gained from the identical twins Scott and Mark Kelly. After a one-year stay in space, Scott was significantly more dissimilar to his twin brother when he returned, and his gene activity was 7% altered. Although Scott Kelly recovered from the ordeal, his body was still permanently altered at the molecular level. Recycling. Yesterday's urine becomes today's coffee on the ISS. Because it would be far too expensive to send water to the space station on a regular basis, space travelers have to drink purified water from recycled urine and crew sweat. Supposedly, the drinking water tastes just like it does on Earth, near drowning in space. In July 2013, Italian Luca Parmitano's helmet began to collect more and more water during an EVA, nearly drowning him. He could scarcely see and hear and barely made it back to the station. It was later discovered that impurities had clogged a filter in the suit, causing water to back up from the suit's cooling system. Attack by microbes that fed on metal and glass. Microbes and fungi are still a major problem on a space station today, because while unmanned probes can be almost wholly disinfected, that's not possible in an area where people live and work. That's why, among other things, you reduce the humidity on a space station so that condensation can't form on the interior surface, since microbes can grow much more poorly under such conditions. Furthermore, astronauts have to do a lot of cleaning, and according to the space agency ESA, 1 hour of work on the ISS costs around €30,000, which is why astronauts are the most expensive cleaners in the universe. The Russian space station Mir also once had to be brought down because of a massive infestation of microbes that ate away at cables, connectors, and even apparatus made of metal. Double bad luck. A tragic setback hit the Japanese space agency JAXA, then still NASA. In the only Japanese Mars mission to date, Nozomi, an engine malfunction failed to bring the probe on a Mars trajectory. However, engineers still hope to get the probe back on course towards Mars with the help of some swing-by maneuvers. but some strong solar flares in April 2002 damaged the communications and power systems of the probe, so that mission was terminated on December 31st, 2003. In 2024, Japan plans to return to the Red Planet with the Martian Moons Exploration (MMX) mission. The advantages of uniform standards. The US has also had to deal with some setbacks, with the most embarrassing mistake occurring during the Mars Climate Orbiter mission in the year 1999. Instead of using the metric system, as is customary for international projects, the supplier Lockheed Martin calculated with the Imperial system for the navigation software, and the orbiter came much closer to the planet than planned. The probe was likely destroyed by friction with the Martian atmosphere. Stranded in space. The collapse of the USSR in August 1991 came as a surprise, so much so that cosmonaut Sergei Krikalev was caught off guard aboard the Soviet space station Mir. While people in Moscow went to the barricades and tanks rolled through the streets, this became known as the last Soviet citizen in history. Indeed, his stay on the space station was significantly prolonged by this event, and he was told there is not enough money to get you down. Even today, Krikalev is among the space travelers with the longest stays in space. Later, he traveled to space twice more on the American Space Shuttle and twice more on the Soyuz spacecraft to the ISS. Thank you for your attention. If you like this video, please leave us a like or write a comment.